everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. So we are jumping straight into episode 2 of The Haunting of Hill House, which is called Open Casket. So we basically jump straight in to find out what Shirley does for her job. We also find out that Olivia designs like the interior of the houses and Hugh builds them. So, you know, again, we kind of find out the type of mum that she is because, you know, the kids are all like, I'm going to play outside. So she's like, you kids know the rule. When I flash the porch light twice, time to come home. And again, throughout the season, that becomes another poignant part of it where I think, you know, no, I don't know, I'm not going to say it. So it just becomes a very poignant part of the season. Whilst Shirley is out trying to take photos with a Polaroid camera, she ends up finding some kittens in a boiler room, I think it is, and her dad lets her take the kittens back to the house to look after them. So it's a bit kind of like, oh God, you know, because obviously if Olivia was there, she probably would have been like, no, kittens stay in the boiler room, you know, their mum knows where they are, I'm sure she's around, you know, she'll come back to them. But because she wasn't there, Dad was a bit like, oh God, and you know, Shirley's probably like, please Daddy, and then she ends up having them in her bedroom. So, there is quite a large mention of the fact that the Dudleys do not stay on the property after dark. They will not stay on the property after dark, and they make their feelings known about that very strongly. We don't know why at this precise moment in time, and I think that adds another twist, another shroud of mystery to what is already quite a dramatic season start, to be honest. So yeah, we then flip to the future where we find out that Shirley actually has a copy of the, like, she's had a model made of the Forever House, which obviously Olivia was working on in Hill House. So yeah, let me just make sure that hang on. Yeah, right, I'm on the right page. Yeah, so we see, I think this is the first time that Luke goes to rehab because everyone's there, like the whole family's there. Nellie's very like, you can do this, like they have horse riding, that, you know, there's so many activities that you can do that will keep your mind off withdrawal, and you know, everyone seems very like, you know, you can do this, he can do this, and it's really good. And I like the fact that, you know, they were very supportive of him. Obviously that was the first time he'd gone to rehab, so kind of can't expect them to keep up that sort of, I want to say facade, but I don't think that's the right word, but like that, you can do it, and it's kind of like, okay. Yeah. So we also notice that, again, Theo is still wearing her gloves. She seems to wear them 24/7. She's always got that guard up. She never lets her guard drop. So again, you kind of jump back and forth, and then you have a scene in this episode where Theo kind of comes bursting through Shirley's door and was like, what do you want? You're like banging on my wall, saying my name, like, well, seriously, what do you want? Like, you know, it's the middle of the night. Shirley is obviously very confused, possibly thinks that she's been talking in her sleep, but she doesn't understand what she means about the banging. And then all of a sudden you get this oh God, that went really dark then. Sun's obviously gone behind the clouds. I'm sure it'll come out in a moment, but yeah, there we go. So then you have this god almighty banging on the wall, and I mean it just goes from like all the four corners of the room. Like there's banging, the pictures are moving, they're like as the wall's being hit, the pictures are like flinging forward and backwards. It's a very scary scene, like especially for people who are as young as Shirley and Theo are. Theo hasn't got her gloves on in this scene because obviously she's asleep. So she's touching Shirley. Shirley's obviously very scared. Theo is very scared, but Theo being scared is amplified by the fact that she can feel how scared Shirley is as well. So again, I do like that aspect of it, of the fact that whenever she touches somebody, she feels something. I hate the fact that Hugh is like, don't be silly, you guys, just scared yourself, it's just going to be the pipes, they rattle. And you kind of sat there like, yeah, I've heard a pipe rattle before, it's never banged so much that the damn pictures have moved off the wall. But again, parents don't believe that kids really see what they think they see. They think they are so scared that their imagination takes over. And sometimes it is true, but obviously in Theo and Shirley's case, very, very not true. So once again we flip back and forth, and it comes to Stephen having to call Shirley in the middle of the night and tell her the really bad news about Nell. Now in this episode and this scene, I did go back a few times and try to find out what time it was when Stephen called Shirley, because I think again it was in the time between 12 and 3. I can't remember exactly what time it was, but I did try and see if I could find out what time it was. And obviously Shirley immediately jumps on Stephen and she's like, I told you that she wasn't right, I told you she sounded rough. Don't be silly, you know, why would she do this? Why would this happen? No, this isn't happening. As you would, it's like you don't want to believe it. So, and then obviously Stephen doesn't, obviously he's going through his own set of emotions and doesn't really want to hear Shirley blame him for the fact that, Nellie didn't go to him and that she died. So that was a very dramatic and a very kind of heartbreaking scene, one of many to come. So then, obviously, before Stephen hangs up, he tells Shirley that he found out through their dad, and that their dad didn't quite tell Stephen the whole story of how Nellie died. So Shirley is just pissed again. She's like, no, he cannot do this again, where something happens and he doesn't tell us the truth. Like, this isn't right, it's not fair, we need to know, we're adults, blah blah blah. It's all like, it's kind of that pent up anger that's obviously been sitting there for such a long time, that suddenly come to the forefront again because of new feelings and new emotions that have been brought up, because obviously Nellie is now not with them anymore. The other thing as well is obviously the kittens obviously aren't very well, so some of them pass away, and there's a lot happens with these kittens. Like, it brings up so much stuff. But then the other thing is as well, like, Shirley wasn't really very affected when she was affected when they died, don't get me wrong, like, she was obviously very sad, but it was like she was able to keep her emotions in check. And I do think that kind of helps with her working in a funeral home, because I suppose you can't but you can't host a funeral for somebody that you do not know, and then be like blubbering and upset and stuff. I suppose you have to be able to kind of lock your emotions away in front of another family who is obviously grieving and going through their own traumatic experience, really, let's put it that way. we also then find out that due to the fact that Shirley works at a funeral home, that she's going to host her sister's funeral. Everyone who finds out is very against it. They're like, no, this is too much, just, have that day to grieve, to be sad, to feel the loss. Don't remember it of having to make sure that the flowers were there, or having to make sure that Nellie looks presentable and as everyone would have remembered her. There's probably just so much that goes into organising a funeral for anybody, let alone your own sister. So, again, shocked but not shocked that she decided to do that, because Shill is very headstrong. She is very, once she's got an idea in her head, that she's gonna kind of go through with it and do it, if that makes any sense. So, yeah. Kind of flitting back to episode 1 with when Mum flashes the porch lights twice, it's time to come home. As Shirley goes up to bed and goes upstairs, the porch lights on the forever home flash twice. So, you kind of there like, oh, time to come home, like, oh my god. So, yeah, it's very, very... that kind of, I didn't notice it immediately, like when I was watching it with my mum. I was so busy watching Shirley go up the stairs that I didn't see the porch lights flash, and my mum was like, the porch lights, they're flashing, and I was like, oh, okay, oh my god, time to come home, like, oh. And it just, I think with this whole season, you watch, and you were almost waiting for the jump scare, you were waiting for something to happen, because it's coming, so you kind of continuously watch Shirley, or I did, because I was like, something's bound to happen, there's got to be like somebody wandering around, or somebody in that section of the shot. And obviously the main whole thing of Shirley walking off into the upstairs and being in the background of that shot, the thing that was in the most forefront of the shot in this part of the screen was the bit that was really happening. So yeah, I was very like, oh my god. So, yeah, I feel like I've missed something on here, and I really don't know what I'm doing. No, it is it. Right, okay, cool, sorry. I should have written these out a little bit better, but it's all good. So, on this one, Shirley, when it comes to Nell's funeral, Shirley's like, no, I can fix this, I can do this. I'll fix it, let me fix it. I need to fix it. And that is also something that Hugh says quite a lot. And it's kind of like Shirley and Hugh are very alike in that respect. We also find out as well that Olivia suffers with horrific migraines. Now, I get awful migraines where if I have a migraine, I can't move, I can't do anything, I just have to go into my bed in total darkness and make sure that the duvet is over my head so no light can get in, and I just have to sleep the day away basically, or sleep for a couple of hours or however long the migraine is there. Now, that's just my own dealings with migraines. I know a lot of people suffer with horrific migraines that are 10 times worse than mine, but just going on my own kind of interpretations of my own migraines and how much of a pain in the butt they are, I feel for Olivia. So she obviously gets such bad migraines, and when she has to tell Shirley that the kittens had to go away to another place because they were so poorly, and it wasn't up to her to look after them, and she wasn't able to look after them as a child. She had to give them up and then go to somewhere like a veterinary practice or something that can deal with them professionally basically. But Shirley is obviously very upset. She was like, no, they were my responsibility. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you just send them away? And she's fighting with Olivia tooth and nail to find out, and you can just see that something's going on with Olivia. Like, she's like, sometimes people pinch the part of their nose by there at the top when they get migraines, and you can just see that she's obviously in a lot of pain, and then all of a sudden she just screams at Shirley, and Olivia feels absolutely devastated. She's like, great, this is my daughter's first like introduction to death, and I lose it with a migraine. Like, she's absolutely devastated because obviously she wanted to react completely different to that scenario. Then Olivia and Hugh have a disagreement regarding the kittens, which is kind of like, with Olivia being like, you know, why the hell did you let her have them? And you shouldn't have done it, and if I was there, I would have turned round and not let her have them. And then Hugh being like, well, if I was present during the conversation with Shirley about death and about the kittens and everything, I would have probably said it slightly different. And then, you know, it's that kind of blame game type of situation. But I do like the fact that when Olivia starts to blame Hugh, she's like, no, it's unfair, I can't. And Hugh's like, okay, but do it anyway, let it out. And I love that, because I think, well, okay, they've got that kind of level of love for each other, that even though, Olivia is blaming Hugh for something, he's like, even though she's backtracking because she's like, okay, fine, no, we're both the parents, Hugh's like, no, just let it out anyway. And the fact that she's got a migraine, like, he knows that she's had these migraines, he's obviously had them before, so he kind of knows the path to tread when it comes to them. So yeah, I do like how their relationship works in that respect. I do think that is it's quite a poignant type of moment when it comes to that episode. So I can probably actually put in both episode 2 and 3 into this video, because I haven't got as many notes on that as I thought I did. So I'm going to have a quick drink. So it's also very hot in here because obviously we have the most amazing sunshine at the moment, but I live directly on a main road, so every time I open my windows, all you can hear is the traffic, and I have tried filming with the windows open before, and all you can hear is the traffic completely drowning anything I say out. So yeah, so we're going to jump straight in to episode 3 on this one, which is touch. Now, I've noticed a theme on a lot of these episodes where certain episodes relate fully to one child or one person's view of stuff. So touch is going to be Theo's episode, as I call it. So we find out that Theo is a counsellor or a psychiatrist, and she obviously feels things through touch. So whenever she has a new child come in that needs therapy, she always says, you know, my name is Theodora, but my friends call me Theo. Will you call me Theo? With her hand out ready to shake for that child to shake her hand, because again, as soon as she touches them, she can get a bit of an insight onto why they're there, what they're feeling, when maybe they're not physically saying it, or the parents aren't giving her enough background on why they're there in the first place, if that makes any sense. So we kind of seem to be quite invested in one specific child in this episode, and I think the little girl is called Kelsey, and she is chatting to Theo about Mr. Smiley and how he lives in the basement of her house. So that is, you know, quite, and the way she describes Mr. Smiley is it's quite creepy anyway, and you kind of have in your own imagination kind of an idea of what this Mr. Smiley is going to look like. So yeah, obviously in our previous episode, Stephen calls Shirley to tell her about Nell, and now it sadly is Shirley's time to tell Theo. Now, we also learn in this episode that Theo lives in the, I don't know what it is, it's like the granny annex of the funeral home. So she kind of lodges with Shirley and Anthony, her husband, and their kids. So yeah, and she goes to go over to tell Theo, and then we jump straight into another bit. You kind of like, you're waiting for it, you're like, oh my god, like Theo is not going to take this well, like, oh, it's so sad. But then we jump straight into another scene. So Theo then decides that she's going to do a house visit to Kelsey's house. Now, Kelsey is actually a foster child who is being fostered by the foster parents that come in with her to her appointment with Theo. She also kind of explains that she doesn't normally do house visits, but she wants to try and get into Kelsey's headspace and see this basement that she says is where Mr. Smiley lives. So this scene is played out amazingly well, like phenomenal acting from, I think her name is, oh my gosh, Kate, is it Siegel? I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it, I'm sorry for butchering it, but Kate, and I think, I'm probably going to say this wrong, but I think Kate is actually married to one of the directors. I think she's played in one or two of his other movies that he's done. So, yeah, but this scene is just bang on point, and it really gives us 100%, wow, we know exactly how Theo's powers of touch really work. And the fact that they actually called this episode Touch as well, I think was pretty damn good. So Theo goes down into the basement and touches all the different things around this basement, trying to get a feel for this, why Kelsey comes up with Mr. Smiley. Anyway, she comes to the sofa or the couch, I'm not sure, because Americans, I think they call it a couch, and she only touches the edge of the sofa, and she just stops, and you're like, what the hell? What's going on? And then she lies down on the couch, and then the scene that follows through is horrific. Like, again, amazing acting from Kate. Just amazing acting. And then obviously during the time where she's lying back on the sofa or the couch, whatever you want to call it, she looks up at the ceiling, and in the woodwork, you can see it almost looks, it looks like a face. It's a smile. So again, it's a face with a very jagged smile, which is where Kelsey gets the idea for Mr. Smiley. And it's really a very poignant scene, but it also shows what actually happens to kids when they are being abused. Obviously Mr. Smiley isn't technically real, but it is what Kelsey made up in her mind to I don't even want to try and guess why she does it, but to try and, I don't know, I'm not even going to try and explain it because I just can't find words for it, but yeah. And so Theo knows how she feels. She knows that she's being abused, but then obviously who is doing the abuse? Who is doing this to this poor kid? So she goes back upstairs and goes, says, oh, I've been in the basement, it's just your average basement, and the foster dad is there, and he says, well, you know, that's what I'm trying to tell you, just a normal basement. So Theo, gloveless hand, holds her hand out to shake the foster dad's hand, and the second she does it, she smiles, and then she's like, it's you. So again, really good acting, because you kind of think, after you've learned and you've felt, like, nobody really knows how it feels to be abused by somebody. You can guess, but you never really get it. But because Theo has this power of touch where she feels everything, and like even in the scene, like she has to put her hand over her mouth to stop herself from screaming, because she feels everything like it's happening to her, which must be absolutely awful. So then she kind of, you know, looks at this guy, and he's like, oh, okay, what you looking at? You know, again, not having a clue that Theo knows exactly who this guy is and what he's all about. So, you know, he's like, what are you looking at? And Theo's like, your smile. And it's just the way she says it, and she's like, yes, go on, Theo, you know, please do something about this. And obviously then you jump into the scene where she calls her colleague and says, get social services out here, get the police out here, get everybody out here, like, get this kid out of this hellhole of a life. Obviously she's still going to be a foster child, but, you know, hopefully she will go into another family that isn't going to do that to her. So, and I also like the fact that Theo says to her colleague, like, I've never let you down before, have I? So obviously this isn't the first time that she has saved a child from an abusive life. So again, very, very well played out storyline. You also then have the other scene, which I think is played phenomenally well by Kate again. Theo decides to go and see Nell's body. So Shirley has finished up all the final touches to Nell, because obviously there was a lot of, I think she said, I can't remember what she said now. I want to say like restorative work, where obviously, you know, she was there for a couple of days, there were flies, all sorts of stuff that people that do that job have to do touch-ups on, because obviously they want them to look presentable for the funeral. So Theo goes down to the room where she's kept, and she's obviously, you know, she's in a nice top and her hair's done, and she looks how Theo would have remembered her. And she slowly takes the fingers out of each one of her gloves, and she puts her hand on Nell's forehead. And nothing happens for a few seconds, and then all of a sudden her eyes go really, really wide. She stumbles back into the, I don't know what they call it. It's the, well, I've heard people call it the slab, but I don't particularly want to call it that. But it's that table that the body is put on for the work to be done. And she just falls to the ground and just lets out this primal scream. It kind of goes from a scream into like a cry, where it's all done in like one breath. And for somebody to actually do that scene, I think is incredible, because you really have to kind of go into yourself as an actor or an actress and be like, right, okay, as a person as well who feels things through touch. Like, you know, it's not going to be just a little scream or a little, oh my god, like, you know, it's from like the depths of your soul, that scream was, and it was phenomenally done. I just think huge kind of, like, it was just like an Oscar winning performance, I think. And I know that sounds very maybe over the top to a lot of people, but I just think the way it was portrayed and the way it was played out was just absolutely on the nose, really. I really, really do. So, sticking with the theme of Theo and touch and feelings and everything else, you actually find out that Theo knows a hell of a lot more about what happens on the last night of their being at Hill House, the night where their dad like ripped them from their beds and didn't explain a damn thing, because in Hugh's rush to get Nellie and Luke out of the house, they all kind of come across each other in the entranceway of Hill House. It's like the main entranceway, and Nell and Luke are kind of pushed towards the front door, and Hugh grabs Theo to kind of drag her out of the house, but obviously she hasn't got her gloves on, so the second that Hugh latches onto her, she just feels everything like that, like straight away. It must have been like being hit by a bus of feels and of feelings and memories and what happened, and all of a sudden she's just overwhelmed by everything that she's felt and seen, and she's just like, don't touch me, like screeching it. And I think that I think you also have a scene, I think it's in this one, where Theo actually gets or takes the money off Stephen for the book, because she obviously needs the money. She wants to get her PhD, and also I do like the fact that she takes the check, then gives Stephen her 2 cents on her feelings of the book. So she's kind of like, you know, I like your version of what happened in the house that night, because, you know, as far as she was concerned and as far as the rest of the kids were concerned, Stephen was actually asleep for the majority of it, because Stephen was also the last child to be whipped out of bed and taken from the house. Everyone else was already in the car, ready and waiting. It was just like, you know, Dad's, you know, you guys stay here, I gotta go and get your brother. So he only saw like a fraction of what the rest of the kids saw, and then you kind of realise what Theo has seen through Hugh, and you kind of think, you actually have no idea what actually happened. You just saw a snippet of such a huge moment in time that, and I think that's another reason why they all got so angry with him about it, amongst other feelings and other stuff. But yeah, I would probably say out of the episodes that I have watched so far, this one happens to be my favourite, because I think it shows the most like, I can't think of the word now, but it kind of gives you such an insight into Theo's character. Like, nobody else, I don't think, really gets that type of episode. And Theo has such a power of touch. Like, it's not anything, you know, none of the other, apart from Luke and Nellie's connection of they just feel off each other. Like, if one feels scared, the other feels scared, like that kind of thing. They just kind of know. But I think Theo, Nellie and Luke are the only ones that really have that kind of, not supernatural, but that kind of difference to their other siblings. So yeah, definitely my top episode at this precise moment in time. I'm very much going for this episode. So I will see you all in the next episode, where we will cover episode 4, which is the twin thing. I hope you are all enjoying these videos so far. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of Touch and also Open Casket, and also on my previous video I did of episode 1 with Stephen Sees a Ghost. You know, just comment on what you think, and yeah, I would love to kind of see what you guys' opinions are of this series so far. So yeah, I will see you all in the twin thing. Take care, guys. See you all soon. Bye.